the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good evening. Today we are going to delve into chapter 2 of the Gospel of Matthew. We will first look at the wise men who came to visit Jesus, the repercussions of their visit, and then the resultant fear of Herod. He was so afraid because they came to see a king. Now, who was Herod? Was it one Herod? Are there many Herods there? Across the New Testament, you find a lot of Herods here. Then we will look at Joseph's escape to Egypt. After that, the very sad event of the massacre of the innocents in Bethlehem. Then we'll also look at another point, Matthew's propensity to quote from the Old Testament. He just quotes at will. And last, Joseph's return from Egypt to Nazareth in Galilee. So this in sum is what we are going to be doing today. I hope you enjoy this Bible class. For those who have not watched the Bible study videos from 1 to 9, I suggest that you go and see those videos to get a firm grasp and understanding of what this Bible class is all about. Now we will read from Matthew chapter 2, the visit of the wise men. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at his rising, and have come to pay him homage." Well, who are these wise men? And how did they come? From where did they come? You know, they were called the Magi. That means they came from a place called Media, which is actually northwestern Iran. If you know the map of Iran, you can see that it's quite a distance that they covered. From Sipor, all the way from northwestern Iran, they traveled, and it's not a friendly terrain, it's a hostile terrain. They traveled all the way to Palestine, looking for a king who was to be born. These Magi actually were the priestly class in Persia. They were like the Levites, in Palestine. They were the priestly class. They were men of wisdom, immense wisdom and knowledge and forbearance. They were highly respected, and they were astrologers, and they must have seen in the stars the coming of a king from among the Jews. Some people say that maybe it was the Halley's comet that is coming, but I don't think so. Some say that it is the conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter, probably the case, because this was a prediction by the astrologers that something big is going to come out of Judea. And of course, Bethlehem was just a few miles south of Jerusalem. So they must have seen. What happens with the astrologers? Normally the whole cosmos, the whole universe, and all its planets are in a regular, constant motion. They will not break their pattern. And suddenly, if in the skies these guys see something very out of the ordinary, they know it's a prediction. These guys were wise men, and they had come following a star. And they came all the way to Palestine. Now they did not know the exact place where Jesus is going to be born. It was an approximation of sorts. So they came to the capital of Judea, that is Jerusalem. And they were asking everybody, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews?" Naturally, they were taken to Herod. When King Herod heard this, he was frightened. Now remember, it is about 4 BC. That means Herod is about 70 years old at this time, very old. And always Herod was suspicious about everybody, and he was always having a complex, persecution complex, that he might be overthrown, he might be killed. He was very frightened. But see what verse 3 says. When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. Now we can understand why Herod was frightened, but why the rest of Jerusalem was frightened? This question must be coming to your minds, isn't it? Why all of Jerusalem is afraid? To understand that, you will need to understand Herod. You will have to understand how destructive this man could become. Like the people in Jerusalem and all the Jews knew what Herod was capable of. For that, we will have to know the real Herod. The thing is, Herod did so many things from 74 BC to 55 AD. When we read, those who, if you've not done our Bible study, we will get totally confused because he was born 74 years before Christ. And finally, the last mention of Herod comes after 50 AD. When Paul is held in jail by the Herod Agrippa, that is. So, is it one Herod? He cannot be, because he cannot be 130 years old. He must have been 130 when he died, if he was the same Herod. So, there was one Herod who ruled from 47 years before Christ. There was a Herod who built the temple. There's the Herod who killed the infants in Bethlehem. There's the Herod who died after they escaped to Egypt. There was a Herod who jailed and killed John the Baptist. There was a Herod who interrogated Jesus. There was a Herod who killed James, the brother of John. He was the first martyr. Then there was a Herod who put Peter in jail. There was a Herod who kept Paul in prison. And then lastly, there was a Herod who died with worms coming out of his flesh. All these Herods, are they the same guy or they different Herods? I think we need to know that if you are in Bible study. So I'm going to take you on a journey that tells you the real Herod and all the rest of the Herods. Yeah? So let's have a look. Herod's father, his name was Antipas, but when he came to power, he called himself Antipater I. How did he come to power? They were Arab Jews, not even of noble class. At the same time, I want to remind you, you remember Judah Maccabeus, the hammer, who defeated the Syrians because they had profaned the temple by putting a pig there and by trying to put the Greek gods in the temple in Jerusalem. You remember that guy? And who mobilized all the Jews, and they fought against the Syrians and drove them out. And he became the ruler, Judah Maccabeus. Well, he was a Hasmonean, and so he appointed his own brothers as high priest of the temple, and then when he died, his brothers became kings, and they were the Hasmonean royal lineage. The last among them was Hyrcanus II. Now, Hyrcanus II was a very weak man, and he was manipulated by one of his officials, who was Antipas, Herod the Great's father. He was just a half Jew, an Arab Jew. But the way he manipulated him with all the fears, and whenever Hyrcanus II would confide in him, he would go and tell his enemies. He made Hyrcanus II even weaker. Add to that, Hyrcanus II was, being the eldest son, was the rightful heir to the throne. But his younger brother, Aristobulus, was always fighting with him and planning to kill him for power. So Hyrcanus actually succumbed, and Antipas gained control of Judea. And before he died, of course, Antipas had actually more children, but we're going to name 3 of them. The eldest one being Salome. Now, this Salome is not the one who danced for the Herod, for John the Baptist. No. This Salome was born 90 years before that Salome. So don't mix it up. Okay? She was the eldest daughter of Antipas. The second was a son, Phasaelus. He was then later on made governor of Judea from 43 to 40 BC by his father. And then the last son, you can see him, dreaded King Herod himself, the Herod the Great. You look at this artist who's painted him. He's captured exactly the wile, the wickedness, the shrewdness, the cunningness of this man. Look at his eyes, and you can know when he looks at you, that behind those eyes, that brain is ticking, suspecting, scheming. This was Herod the Great. He ruled over Judea from 40 BC to 4 BC. That's about 36 years he was ruling. Now, I also want to tell you that Salome got married. Salome had a habit, she being the eldest among them, she had a lot of control over her brothers. And Herod was always looking up to Salome. And when she used to constantly bicker about her husband, about the fights she had with her husband, Herod, being a little hot-tempered, would always think about it and he say, my word, I wish he was dead. But then what happened was Hyrcanus II was an old man. So Herod, when he was ruler, he suspected that Hyrcanus might come and restart the Hasmonean royal lineage. So he told Hyrcanus, come, I will make you high priest of the temple. He called him, and made him high priest of the temple. And later, he executed him for trying to gain control. I'll tell you how Hyrcanus was related to Herod the Great. He murdered Hyrcanus. He actually married Hyrcanus's granddaughter. I will come to that. Let's look at this. Then what happened was Salome's constant bickering about her husband and complaints. Herod got so tired. Normally some of us always think that if anybody troubles us, we think, I wish you were dead. Because Herod had power, he made his own wish come true. He killed Salome's husband as well. So this is the second person he murdered from within his own relative. Next, Herod of course got married. His first wife was Doris. She bore him a son. So he named Doris's son, his first son, as Antipater. Doris also had a brother who was to be around in the palace precincts. Then what happened was Hyrcanus' daughter Alexandra told Herod the Great, you don't have to worry from the Hasmonean side if you marry my daughter. Herod the Great knew Mariamne, that is Alexandra's daughter. Alexandra had assured Herod, I know you like my daughter, but if you marry her, you will always quell the threat of an Hasmonean uprising because my daughter is Hasmonean. But Herod was not worried about all that. He was smitten by the beauty, the immense beauty of Mariamne the First, that is the daughter of Alexandra. So Mariamne got married to Herod, and along with Mariamne, Alexandra, the mother-in-law, also started staying with them. Alexandra was one of the vilest women you'll get. And add to that, Salome, the eldest sister of Herod the Great, was another vile woman. Now imagine two vile women in the household of Herod. You can imagine what will be happening in future. Mariamne was a pure, noble soul. She was a very noble soul. Loyal, faithful to the very end. You know what happened is, as soon as Mariamne got married to Herod, Mariamne's mother kept on egging Mariamne to force Herod to make Mariamne's brother as the high priest. Now Mariamne's brother was not even 18. But Herod, because he loved Mariamne so much, he installed Mariamne's brother as the high priest of the temple of Jerusalem. And within a year, Mariamne's brother drowned in a pool. Mariamne's mother, that is Alexandra, blamed Herod for the murder. She said he has been murdered. And she kept on bickering about it. Herod said, I have not killed your son. So what Mariamne's mother did, she complained to Cleopatra. You know Cleopatra, the wife of Mark Antony, who was in charge in Rome. You know, the Romans, they could, and on a whim, just dismiss any of these kings here. So Herod was then afraid. Cleopatra in turn complained to Mark Antony. Mark Antony then summoned Herod. Come to Rome, I want to talk to you. I want to ask you about this boy's murder. When Herod was about to leave, Herod thought, my mother-in-law is creating trouble for me. Maybe Mark Antony might kill me there. He's calling me to execute me. He called his uncle Joseph and he told him, in case I am killed by Mark Antony, I want you to do me a favor. What is it? Asked his uncle. He said, in case Mark Antony kills me, I want you to kill Mariamne, my wife. Saying, why? Is it to gain revenge for what her mother has done? Saying, no, not because of that. I want you to kill her because I don't want her to be unfaithful to me after I die. I don't want her to get married to anybody after I die. Joseph was puzzled, but he said, okay, I'll remember what you told me. And then Herod went on his way to meet Mark Antony in Rome. So Herod left for Rome to meet Mark Antony, secure in the knowledge that should he be killed, Mariamne would also be killed by Joseph, his uncle. Mariamne, being the angel that she is, and Uncle Joseph would come and visit her, and over a period of days, he confided in her finally. That's what normally happens. Nobody keeps secrets. He told her of Herod's intention. He just wanted to let Mariamne know how much Herod loved her, that in case he dies, he would like Mariamne also to die. Mariamne didn't take it in that spirit. Joseph's intentions were good. But then what happened was, Mariamne was very, very disappointed. Then later, as Herod wasn't coming back, there were rumors that Herod had been killed by Mark Antony. The moment this news came, Herod's mother-in-law, that is Mariamne's mother, started telling Joseph, you take us now, take me and my daughter to Rome for protection. And Salome got to know of all this. Finally, Herod came back home. When he came back home, Salome, his sister, started instigating Herod, telling him that his wife Mariamne had been unfaithful to him and that she and Joseph had an adulterous relationship. Salome also told Herod that they were planning, they were planning to get rid of him. Herod didn't pay any attention to Salome. He didn't believe any of that because he loved Mariamne very much. He wouldn't harm Mariamne at all, even though he had already murdered 2 people. And then suddenly one day Mariamne asked him, why did you tell Joseph, your uncle, to kill me? The moment Herod heard that, he came to know that Joseph had told her about it. He was so enraged that he had Joseph executed, killed. So that was the 3rd murder. Yeah. Then what happened was Doris's brother, he murdered him as well. Everything was forgotten about Mariamne and Joseph because Herod loved Mariamne. Mariamne bore 2 sons. The elder one was Alexander and the younger one was Aristobulus. Herod also married another woman and he also named her Mariamne, the second. She bore him a son who's finally going to be Herod Philip. He also married a Samaritan woman. Her name was Malthus. And she bore him 2 sons, that is Herod Archelaus, who will feature in chapter 2, and Herod Antipas. You know this man. And finally, there's his wife Cleopatra of Jerusalem. Now this Cleopatra was reputed to be look-alike of the real Cleopatra. That's why she was called Cleopatra of Jerusalem. She bore him a son whose name was Herod Philip II. So these were his children. Now actually, though we only show you 5 wives of Herod over here on this family tree, he actually had 10 wives. And he had 14 sons in all. But here we show you the prominent ones. Now what happened was, about 6 years after this incident of him being called by Mark Antony, Caesar Augustus, who was very happy with Herod, Herod in the meantime was building and constructing great monuments in the whole of Judea and in Palestine. He was creating monuments after monuments. What happened with this was The people in Palestine were getting jobs. They were happy. And these monuments, they were known to be world class. When he made the temple, he increased the total area of the temple. I've already explained to you in the temples of Jerusalem in the video. Everything was so grand about Herod. And also Herod had a big heart, a large heart. When there was a famine in the land, he just cut off all the taxes from the people. He had his plate armor of gold, which he sold to buy corn for his people. So he was benevolent to an extent. But he also had his weaknesses. Now, about 6 years after that incident, when he was called by Mark Antony, Emperor Caesar Augustus summoned him to Rhodes. He told him, I'm coming to Rhodes. I want to meet you and talk to you in Rhodes. Yeah. So every time any Caesar or any authority in Rome calls some of the governors or the kings, they used to tremble because they never knew whether they had returned back safely. So now again Herod thought, oh, I might be killed by Augustus. I might have made some mistakes. So he might kill me. So again he summoned one of his trusted officials. His name was Sohemus. So Sohemus, he called him and he says, in case I am killed, in the same thing, in case I am killed, I want you to ensure that Mariamne and her mother both don't live. You kill them both. Sohemus said, oh, again, why? No, for no reason. I just don't want her to be married again. Sohemus was puzzled, but he said, oh, yes, my lord, I will listen to you. And then Herod went on his journey to Rhodes. And as usual, Mariamne's mother got suspicious. I think 5-6 years ago, he did something. He might be doing the same thing again. He might have told Sohemus that to kill Mariamne. So when she asked Sohemus confided, he asked me not only to kill Mariamne, but he also asked me to kill you. When Mariamne heard this, she was so angry, saying, this man is not going to learn. He's already killed his own uncle for it. He's not going to learn. She was human, and she also loved Herod in return tremendously, and she was extremely beautiful. So when Herod came back, Mariamne refused to talk to him. She was not talking to him. She refused to sleep with him. She refused to return all his pleasantries. And Herod was puzzled. Why is she not talking to me? And Herod was lovelorn because he loved her very much. She wouldn't talk to him. Seeing that Mariamne and Herod are not talking to each other, Salome, Herod's sister, grabbed this opportunity. She said, this is the best time to drive a wedge between my brother and his wife. So she came and told him, you know, your wife Mariamne has been plotting to overthrow you. She has been planning to poison you. Now this is something that Herod could not bear. He was always suspicious of everybody. Now his life was at stake, so he got so worried. And he says, no, she can't do that. Or maybe she can do it. Maybe that's why she's not talking to me. And then he caught Mariamne's most trusted eunuch. He was tortured. That eunuch was tortured beyond his forbearance. But the eunuch said, no, she's not plotting to kill you. Only thing is that she's angry with you because Sohemus told her that in case you are killed by Augustus, that he should kill her and her mother. When he heard this, again Herod was so angry. He was not angry on Mariamne, he was angry on Sohemus. He executed Sohemus immediately. Sohemus was dead. So he went to Mariamne, and Mariamne confronted him and said, you want me killed, you wanted to kill me. Herod, on being instigated by Salome, he says, no, now you are exceeding your brief. And Herod was now getting enraged. Mariamne's mother, Alexandra, saw this. And she was now afraid for her own life. He's saying, if he kills Mariamne, he's going to also kill me. So what she said, it's true, Mariamne was plotting to kill you. And I have tried to stop her. Herod was heartbroken. Because now Mariamne's own mother is saying that. So he arranged for her to be tried for adultery and treason. Mariamne was sentenced to death and she was executed. Herod was downcast, crestfallen, because he had lost a woman whom he truly loved. He had 10 wives, but among them he loved her the most. And he had lost her, as if he had lost a limb. He just couldn't bear her absence. He says, what have I done? I've killed her. Salome, I know, was trying to instigate me, and the mother-in-law is wicked. He stopped going out, he stopped eating. He was pining for her and he was in remorse and grief. He was becoming weaker by the day. Mariamne's mother, that is Herod's mother-in-law, saw this as an opportunity. She says, I think I can come back and revive the Hasmonean royal lineage. I am going to overthrow Herod and I am going to become queen. So she was trying to do that. Herod came to know of it and he promptly executed Mariamne's also. So there is another murder that took place among the relatives. Now, having executed them, Herod was now afraid. He's saying that now Mariamne's sons, Alexander and Aristobulus, might try to take revenge on me. So he also had them both executed. And then in turn, he thought, oh, and they also have children. Especially Alexander's sons are growing up and they know what I have done. So he executed both the sons when they were swimming in a swimming pool. He had them drowned. So now there are 10 murders on his head. Macrobius, the Greek writer, wrote in his book Saturnalia. He writes, when it was heard that as part of the slaughter of boys up to 2 years old in Bethlehem, Herod, king of the Jews, had ordered his own son to be killed. Emperor Augustus remarked, it is better to be Herod's pig than to be his son. This was a reference to how Herod as a Jew would not kill pigs, but had 3 of his sons and many others killed. That's how murderous Herod was. Now let me tell you about the other things about Herod. There's one more murder he's going to commit before he dies. In the meanwhile, Aristobulus, who had been killed, had 5 children. Yeah, 2 of them prominently are the Herod Agrippa I. I'll tell you about him. Yeah, he's the guy who died with worms coming out of his flesh. And Herodias, you know Herodias? Okay, I'll tell you about her. She got married to her uncle, Herod Philip, who was the son of Mariamne, as you can see on the chart. Yeah, she got married to him. And in the meanwhile, Herod was getting old and his arteries had hardened, arteriosclerosis he had. Very painful. Add to that, he had maybe varicose or whatever. His feet were swelling and bleeding and full of pus. He had a lot of problems with his stomach. His breath had a stench and he knew his time was coming. By right, his eldest son Antipater, the son of Doris, was supposed to be king. Herod being so suspicious, word got to him that Antipater is trying to kill you, to poison you. So what did he do? He executed Antipater, his eldest son. So that was the 11th murder that he committed. Then he made his will. And in that will, he said, I'm going to divide my kingdom into 4 parts. And I'm going to submit this will to Emperor Augustus. So he made 4 parts of his kingdom. Yeah? And the 4 parts were Judea, Samaria, and the other 2 parts, which is Galilee and the other side of Sea of Galilee. And in that will, he gave 2 parts out of the 4. When he divided his kingdom into 4 parts, it was called the Tetrarchy. Tetra means 4. Kingdom divided into 4 parts. And 2 parts he actually gave it to the eldest son of Malchus, his Samaritan wife. Yeah, Herod Archelaus became the ethnarch. Yeah, he was given 2 parts of the kingdom, that is Judea and Samaria. To Herod Antipas he gave Galilee. And to Herod Philip, he gave the tetrarch of Batanea, Trachonitis, Auronitis. Yeah. So that was written in the will. Finally, Herod died. A horrible death. Horrible death. No one could kill him, but God could. Yeah, he died. The moment he died, Salome, his sister, of course, she was also given Gaza, that place in Gaza, and small places, small parts Herod put in his will for his sister. Salome was not happy with that little thing that, she said, that's too less for me. So she started instigating Herod's sons against each other. She instigated Herod Antipas against King Herod Archelaus because he got 2 parts of the kingdom. And so all of them, when Herod died, all of them rushed to Rome, to Emperor Augustus. And they were fighting among themselves. Augustus would have none of it. He said, I'm going to honor the will of my friend Herod the Great. So Archelaus it was who would reign over Judea and Samaria. That is, he would be in Jerusalem and in charge of the temple. Herod Antipas would be in Galilee. So that was how it was. In the meanwhile, Herodias and Herod Philip had a daughter whose name was Salome. Now Herod died in 4 BC. That's the time just after he killed all the children in Bethlehem. So Herodias left her husband Philip to stay with the brother-in-law Herod Antipas. You know the story. John the Baptist opposed it and had to pay for his life. Yeah. When Salome danced for Herod Antipas, and when Herod was so happy with her performance, he said, ask whatever you want, up to half my kingdom. She went and asked her mother Herodias, and she asked for the head of John the Baptist on a platter. You know that story. So Antipas was it who killed John the Baptist. It was Antipas who also questioned Jesus when he was on trial. Now you'll be surprised that that same Salome who danced got married to a grand uncle, Herod Philip. You can see on the chart, I've shown it. You can see it. Yeah, Herod Philip, the son of Cleopatra of Jerusalem. She married him. Herod Agrippa I, who was the son of Aristobulus. He was the Herod who actually then, was given a part of the kingdom, and he complained against Herod Antipas to Caligula, who was a friend of his, and he was made Herod. I also want to tell you that Herod Archelaus was so bad in his governing. So within 10 years of becoming Herod, he was like his father. He chased everybody who had gone on that delegation, earlier to Augustus for the will. And every time somebody complained, he made sure that he would chase them and kill them. He was just like his father. Fed up of all the delegations that were coming to Rome complaining about Archelaus' misrule, the authorities in Rome called Archelaus and just banished him to Gaul. Go and stay there. And in his place, they sent their own Roman governor, Coponius. And after Coponius was transferred, came the governor Pontius Pilate during the time of Jesus. I also want to tell you that Herod Agrippa executed James the Apostle, the brother of John. Herod Agrippa, when he came into power and he took Antipas as part of his tetrarchy, he made sure that all the followers of Jesus and John the Baptist were persecuted. That's how he killed James. You can read how he put Peter in jail, and the angel of the Lord took Peter out. He had 4 children, and you will read about Bernice, Drusilla, and Agrippa II in the book of Acts. Agrippa I finally got control of most of the property or of King Herod the Great. And he thought himself to be so powerful that once in Caesarea, people from Tyre and Sidon, who were the Gentiles, they had some problems, and Herod Agrippa had said Herod Agrippa I had said, we are going to stop trade with you. And they were so afraid, they came to him and they praised him to the skies. He got so flattered that God struck him, and within 5 days he was dead and worms came out of his body. So his son Herod Agrippa II became Herod. He's the same Herod, Agrippa II, who went in the book of Acts chapter 25 and 26, goes to interrogate Paul. So that in turn is the story of all these Herods. I hope you get an understanding of this now. Now you come to know why the whole of Jerusalem was afraid. Because they knew Herod the Great was mad. He was very suspicious. He would kill anybody that came in the way of his kingship. Now we read from verse 4. And calling together all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And Bethlehem was just south, very close to Jerusalem. But Bethlehem means the house of bread. Why was it called the house of bread? It was a fertile land. It was not only used for agricultural purposes but also as a pastoral land for all the sheep that were reared there. Most of the sheep reared there were for the temple. No wonder the greatest Lamb of God was born in the same place in Bethlehem. Bethlehem, it was just slightly away from Bethel. Bethel means the house of the Lord. In the Old Testament, God had told Jacob, you go to Bethel, for that is the place where I first came to you to help you when your brother Esau was going to kill you. Go there and build an altar for me in my memory. Jacob, along with all his people, went to Bethel and he built this altar. Having built the altar, he moved on, as he was going towards Bethlehem. Rachel, who was pregnant with her son Benjamin, she died in childbearing. Jacob was so heartbroken, so he buried her there, in a place called Ramah, very close to, on the outskirts of Bethlehem. So, that is one more thing I want to tell you. So, Bethlehem was a place which was actually at a higher level, at about more than 1,000 feet above sea level. It was like a valley on a ridge. And all the houses were built on the slopes. The stable that you see for Jesus' birth is not made of wood. Jesus was not in a stable made of wood for animals. He was in a stable which was a cave. Most of these houses were on the slopes, so most of their stables also were made inside caves where the animals could be warm and safe. So when you see a crib during Christmas time made of wood and all that, like a small hut, remember that Jesus was born in a cave. That's what you see when you go to Bethlehem. You have to go inside a cave where that plaque is there which says here Jesus was born. So that was Bethlehem. Now I want to tell you, when the scribes read this, said this, they were aware, they were quoting from Micah chapter 5 verse 2. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel. But see, when the wise men had come and told them of this great news, Herod saw it with suspicion. The chief priests saw it with indifference. They did not care. Whatever. They didn't believe that. They knew how to quote it, but they didn't believe it. Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay homage to him. Of course, you know the story. You know Herod was wanting to kill the child. When they heard the king, they set out. And there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising until it stopped over the place where the child was. When a star stops, a star doesn't stop suddenly in its elliptical motion or in its orbit. It's like, you're traveling in two trains, and if they are the same speed, the other train looks stationary. You know what I mean? Or if you're on a plane or on a ship, traveling at the same speed, it looks as if both of them are stationary. Yeah. So when it's in a strange conjunction, it appeared as if the star had stopped. And so they stopped in Bethlehem and the place where Jesus was born. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy because they knew it was the sign. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense and myrrh. The significance of gold, frankincense and myrrh, you know it. Gold is for a royal king. That's what our Lord Jesus was, a king. Not of this world. but of the eternal world. Frankincense was a gift for a priest. Now these people were astrologers, they were wise men, they could foresee from the stars the future. They knew that Jesus would be a priest that would be a bridge between men and God. He would be the ultimate priest. That's why the frankincense and myrrh is used for funerals, for death. They also knew and foresaw that Jesus would be dying for our sins. Yeah. You know, there's a painting, it's called The Shadow of Death, a painting by William Holman Hunt. You can see it on the screen now. You know, tired after, Jesus is a young lad here, 25, 26, 27 maybe at the most. And then he's been cutting a plank of wood, and then, you know, he sort of, he wants to relax his muscles, and he goes to the door, puts up his hands and tries to stretch himself. And Mary, his mother, can see the shadow that the sun is casting, and she can see it like a crucifix. That is the shadow of death that Mother Mary saw and kept in her heart. This is what the wise men saw when Jesus would die. Okay, we continue from verse 12. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. Now, they escaped to Egypt. Now, after they had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." This is Herod the Great we are talking about, yeah? Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night and went to Egypt and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. "Out of Egypt I have called my son." Now, I told you, Matthew is quoting the Old Testament. He doesn't lose an opportunity to quote from the Old Testament. You know why? Because he's writing for the Jews. The Jews believed the Old Testament to be sacrosanct. The Jews also believed that the Old Testament prophesied about the Messiah. So here Matthew is quoting. He's quoting only part of that quote from Hosea, chapter 11, verse 1. You know what is the full verse? "When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son." What Hosea meant to say is not what Matthew is saying. He is quoting Hosea out of context. You know what exactly Hosea wanted to say is that Israel was taken to Egypt in bondage, and out of Egypt I called my son Israel. That is, I delivered them from Egypt. That is what is said here. But here he is putting it on. Actually, Jesus is not even coming out of Egypt. He is going to Egypt, and Matthew is quoting in here. When we read a passage like this, you know, we must remember that though it seems strange and unconvincing for us, it would certainly appeal to the Jews for whom Matthew was writing. You know, when they were fleeing to Egypt, you know, they had to, Joseph was told by the angel, immediately he must have woken up Mary. Mary grabbed her son, wrapped him up properly, because it was going to be cold. It is the desert that they have to cross. They sat on their donkey and they moved out in haste. Mother Mary must have been very tired. The baby, you know, she was holding the baby and it was cold. And they were trying to go as fast as possible. It was the middle of the night. And then Mary must have been tired. Joseph must have been tired. So they thought they'd rest. So they went and thought they'd rest inside a cave because it would be warm there. And there in that cave was a spider, a small spider, who saw it was the Lord, baby Jesus. He thought, I must also do something for my Lord. What does he do? He says, it's cold and the cold wind is blowing against the mouth of the cave and making everybody in there cold. Let me do something for him. What can I do? So he started building a web on the entrance of the cave so that the wind would be stopped. He worked furiously to make a web that was, you know, impermeable of sorts, you know. Worked and worked and worked till dawn broke in. And that cave was totally covered by the spider. The entrance to the cave was totally covered by spiders, the spider's web. Now Herod had told his soldiers, all of you go and kill all the children in Bethlehem who are below 2 years of age. So those soldiers came, their captain came and he saw one of his soldiers was trying to enter, saying, "You fool, why are you entering that cave? Nobody has entered that cave for years. Can't you see that spider's web? Leave that cave alone, don't waste your time." And so they passed by, and the spider was happy. And Jesus' eyes twinkled on that web, the spider's web, and it turned so silvery bright. No wonder we commemorate that every Christmas when we use tinsel on our Christmas trees. Yeah, that is the legend of the Christmas spider. It originated from the flight to Egypt. Now, the massacre of the infants. When Herod saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, that they had not come back to tell him, he was infuriated, and he sent and killed all the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old or under, and according to the time that he had learned from the wise men. Many people say, how could he kill everybody? Now remember, Bethlehem was a small town, a village. Its population must not have been that great. And how many children are born in that small population? Maybe, an estimate, maybe 6 to maximum of 20. And I've already told you how murderous Herod was. He wouldn't have stopped. For him, killing 6 people from the populace was nothing, because he had killed 11 people from his own family and many more. We don't know about them. Some commentators say that it was not in the thousands, like that image that you see. I've posted an image, a painting. There they show so many children being massacred. It's not true. Maybe 6, or maybe even lesser than that, or maybe a little more than that. That's it. But it was symbolic of a massacre, because the soldiers must have gone to every house to find out kids. And who kills kids anyways? Heartless people. Okay, and then verse 17. And then was fulfilled what has been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation. Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they are no more. See, again Matthew is quoting. Of course, what this Jeremiah is quoting is from Ramah in Bethlehem. But Jeremiah is not quoting for the massacre of innocents. If you read this quote from 1 Samuel chapter 10 verse 2, you'll see that what Jeremiah is telling is, he's referring to Rachel being buried in Ramah. When the Jews were captured by the Babylonians and sent into exile, they had to pass through the road that was going through Bethlehem. And along that road is the place where Rachel was buried. So as the exiles were trudging and beaten up and trudging towards Babylon, that's what Jeremiah wrote. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation. Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they were no more. So many people had died. So many people were being taken into exile. During the destruction of the first temple, you remember when the Babylonians attacked Jerusalem and killed everybody? That's what Jeremiah is saying. And that's what is being quoted from 1 Samuel chapter 10 verse 2. Jeremiah was picturing the people of Jerusalem being led away in exile. Yeah. So again Matthew is quoting out of context, because you get puzzled. Even one of my Bible students asked me this question just 3 days ago. I hope the question stands answered now. The return from Egypt. Verse 19. When Herod died, an angel of the Lord suddenly appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel. For those who were seeking the child's life are dead." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. When he heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea, Archelaus, Herod Archelaus, was given 2 parts of that tetrarchy, who didn't know how to rule and was chucked out in 10 years because of his madness, because he was killing everybody like his father. That Archelaus. But when he heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Joseph was afraid to go there. And after being warned in a dream, he went away to the district of Galilee. There he made his home in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled. that he will be called a Nazarene or a Nazorian. And here Matthew has given us an insoluble problem to us. People are still searching where it has occurred in the Old Testament. No prophecy of this type was made, but nevertheless Matthew is quoting for the Jews. Yeah, he wants to convince them. So that's all for today, folks. Remember to read chapter 3 before you. God bless. Praise God.